Brave move. So we're just going to talk about external insights. I'm going to talk about 4 kinds of ways in which I guess we can make our work actionable. So there are recommendations, so taking piece of analysis and then what are the recommendations to do after that. Talk a bit about workshops. We've touched upon a couple of these things through the Q&A already, so we might skip some of these. And then dashboards and reports. And then finally, an area we haven't really talked about so much today, although Tom alluded to it, is models, and particularly how at the FT we take data science models and kind of productionize them and actually bring them to life and drive, really, in many cases, quite significant business value from those models. Okay, recommendations. So probably everyone, when they do a presentation, kind of has a recommendation slide at the end, I would hope. So the question is, when you're doing recommendations, how do you kind of make these things have some impact? There's a few things. So going back to our questioning thing before, understanding who is the audience is important. So depending on who the audience is and what they do, we'll also need to tailor the recommendations for the kind of thing to think about. I think one thing that's very important is, I'll talk a bit about kind of being bold with recommendations, but the recommendation has to fall out of the narrative. So when you're building a deck and you're following a story and kind of creating a good piece of analysis, the recommendation needs to really follow that story. You can't just have a recommendation that comes out of the blue, or it's unrelated to what you're talking about. It needs to be there. Another thing I think is very important is to quantify the impact. It's all very well to recommend making a change. I think a hypothetical example where you could take a website and you could either launch it in Sweden or Denmark. Do a whole load of analysis and you say, okay, we recommend Denmark and Sweden. It's much more powerful, that recommendation, if you said, doing that, we think we'll get 20,000 subscribers in the first year, and then 50,000 in year 2. So you're actually taking the analysis, coming with a recommendation, but actually saying what you think that's going to deliver. Again, you can be relatively bold about those kind of things. You need to be defendable, and you need to say how you came up with those numbers. No one's going to take them a thread, they won't suddenly become kind of a target necessarily. As long as people understand methodology and the approach you took for making those assumptions, they should be pretty defendable. Sometimes a recommendation can be to do more analysis, but I would recommend using this sparingly because A, you're just creating more work for yourself. Place to be, unless you want to do that. Well, if you're a consultant, pay who's charging by the hour, then obviously this is quite often a recommendation piece of work. But bear in mind we're mostly not in that kind of area. There is a danger of so-called analysis paralysis. We encourage people to keep analysing, and often that kind of technique of asking more and more data can really be a way of decision makers deferring making a decision. I think you don't need to fill a slide or a page with recommendations. As I said at the beginning, very often this could be the last slide on a presentation, and people go, "Christ, I've got to fit like 6 bullet points on here," and and it's just like a thing you put on a slide, and you start putting kind of waffle in there or really kind of obvious stuff or really kind of pointless stuff. Whereas actually, one good recommendation is clearly worth more than 1,000 half-baked ones. You've only got one recommendation and it's powerful, find a way of fitting it on the slide. Do really big font maybe or a picture, or you don't have to have a list of kind of 5 recommendations there. There's a trap I think you can fall into quite a lot. It makes things look a bit like an afterthought. But as I said, don't be afraid of being bold. I think to a certain extent the worst thing that happens is they can kind of say no, or they can ignore you, or they can challenge you, and that can create an interesting dialogue. However, kind of be bold within context. So do some research. You don't want to tell people stuff they already know. People generally get quite frustrated if you tell them things they already know. You want to know whether they've already got this planned. You want to know what's going on in the wider market. So that be bold, but make sure that you back up your boldness. I think Darren's slide before is quite a nice example of a recommendation. He hasn't gone into a massive amount of detail, but he's had a narrative that he was showing before, and he said, okay, light package, here's our 3 criteria, cross, light package, out, free trial, it worked here, it dropped out there, paid trial, wash. And kind of passed all the tests, that's the kind of one we should go with, and actually we forecast that we'll give you a 50% uplift. It's a really good example of a simple kind of recommendation that actually is a genuine strategic change that happens within the business. Okay, workshops. Who here doesn't enjoy workshops? Who here loves workshops? Everyone else is kind of in the middle here. Okay. So as I said before, we're doing a few more workshops for the FT. People that really kind of take control of those as analysts, but there are a lot of people who find these things kind of boring or tedious, or they take them out of their day job, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. So just kind of a few tips around doing workshops. I think generally in person and kind of low tech is best. It's quite easy to get caught up and come up with some kind of clever technological solution to a workshop. Whereas there's a reason why most workshops involve posting notes, because it kind of works, it's kind of simple. Actually, these days we'll take pictures and stuff with your phone to do whether it sits on that document or not. Use your analysis to provide content. If you're going to run a workshop as an analyst, it has to be based upon the work you've done. If you want to run a workshop on process change or a workshop on HR policy, you're running is a workshop on that. So it needs to be backed off that, and you need to provide some what's going on. Small and mixed groups work best. I think as has happened here today, kind of mixing people up is good. One of the benefits of the workshops is people get to work with people they're not used to working with before. Be clear about the exercise. It's important to understand what the exercise is, get more involved, and sharing. Keep your time. I think it's very important. People kind of get annoyed when stuff runs over. Document everything. As I said, that can kind of be just with photographs of walls and post-it notes, etc. And then the kind of follow-up and the follow-through is very important. So it's, I'm sure we've all been to workshops before. Some good ideas have come about, and then people get the whiteboard paper and they kind of put it on their desk and then they dies. That's the kind of thing that leaves people to lose faith in workshops. So if you are actually taking your analysis and trying to bring it to life a bit more in the workshop, make sure you follow these rules, and particularly that you follow up and actually let people realize that there's a benefit for you. Okay, dashboards and reports. So a few things that I think make a good report. So a good report, is kind of linked to strategy. It's, if you have a strategy and a goal, having reports that actually show how you're tracking against that goal, against that strategy, is very important. And a lot of the work, again, that we kind of do, come up with a recommendation, kind of a strategy, and one of the things we do next is have a report to track progress against that. And we do that across our business a lot, and that's very important. Has to be accessible and easy to understand. We produced, when we started reporting to our traffic numbers to our B2C business, produced really in-depth reports around like an Excel sheet with about 15 tabs and all these different kinds of data around the conversion journey and the different barriers they hit and all this kind of stuff. And it was so complicated that no one looks at it. It was quite useful for us as a reference document, but as a report, what we found is we put a very simplified front page on, which kind of showed the funnel, and said how much traffic have you got, how many conversions have you got, how many trials have you got, all the way down to the funnel. That was much, much more effective than allowing people to actually understand what was going on and make decisions. Being consistent, I think, is very important. So tracking stuff over time, having that, really understanding how metrics are changing over time is really good. So again, I'll refer back to Darren's presentation a couple of times, but his kind of chart, which went back to whatever 2012 and showed the acquisition volume, a really nice way of showing the context and different stages that our business went through, from rapid growth to kind of plateauing to incremental growth, and then through to kind of a changing model. Really nice way of actually seeing things, and you can annotate the chart and say, here's where things happen. It really allows you to learn from. Contextual is very important as well. So I think I said from a kind of a retail background, they're looking at year-on-year stuff, something that always happens, because quite often you look at how things change week to week or day to day or month to month. There's so many other things going on, particularly in the news business, where there could be a big spike in the story. Actually understanding how things are doing compared to last year, when you can normalise stuff over longer periods of time, or looking at rolling 6 weeks averages rather than just daily or weekly numbers, really allows you to understand a bit more. Being actionable again, so that you can, to a certain extent, make reports actionable, make reporting actionable, or you can make presentations actionable. Kind of put key things in there. So simple rank statuses, for example. So that report I talked about, where we show how we're performing on our conversion funnel, has a rank status, so a red, amber, green status, which shows you if you're kind of below target or there's some areas you can focus on. This kind of simple stuff like that. Valuable. So this really means, can people play with it? Can they filter the data? Can they cut the data? obviously where that's appropriate. It has to be easy to produce. So someone asked a question in one of the earlier sessions about how long we spend kind of doing the reporting in the team, and I said it was kind of it's Monday morning for a couple of people. It's manageable within a team of 15. That might not be manageable within a team of a smaller number. So you need to make sure that the reporting you're producing is easy to produce and doesn't take a massive amount of your time. So the more stuff you can automate, the better. It needs to be accurate, very clearly. So I think Tom mentioned an example before, sort of early in his career, where he had some inaccuracies in his data, and it massively undermined all the future work he did for that client. That's just as true within the internal stakeholder. You can very quickly lose trust of someone by having incorrect data. So it really is up to you and this team to kind of oversee the QA process and make sure that and then also delivered on time. So once you get people used to reporting and they use that data, they start to build the rhythm around it, their working week or their working day. And as soon as that data doesn't appear, it becomes a bit stressful for everyone. It's stressful for the stakeholder because they haven't got the data and they're normally use it to go and talk to someone. It's stressful for you as an analyst because you're then scrubbing around trying to do it. So getting stuff delivered on time is I think, and again, here's another example of Darren's report. Again, nice, kind of simple, clear, very clearly linked to the strategy, very clearly linked to our acquisition strategy, the kind of both the gross numbers and the net the decline and the net numbers. It's a very nice kind of simple report that does a lot of things and works. So this works both at a trading level. Also, this goes to our chief commercial officer, who uses this to do his data weekly commentary to the board. He uses this to tell me what's going on. The other thing about dashboards is they don't kind of need to be high tech. So here's a couple of dashboards you might have seen when you walked around the FT. This first one is kind of like a real-time dashboard on some of the either lifts or the elevators, just kind of on the screens. And we have a whole load of different dashboards that kind of cycle through. This one here is actually hand-drawn, as you can probably guess. So this is almost like a recreation of like a Salesforce dashboard with a speedometer on it, which seems kind of low-tech and a little bit cheesy, but actually it works quite well. It's in a sales environment, you know, it gets people interested and they kind of pay attention to that in a way that perhaps they wouldn't pay attention to a PDF or send to them every day to an email because they've got other stuff to worry about. So actually, you know, simple stuff works quite well. And this concept of sort of surrounding people with data, it really does start to gradually kind of permeate through the business. They're looking at this dashboard every week, and we've got some other few kind of hand-drawn ones, like this one that's showing progress towards our engagement target. It really starts to kind of permeate the business, and people start to thinking that data is important, it surrounds us and kind of gets us excited. These dashboards here, if they go down, the first person in the FT space they go down is John. Tom and says why the dashboard, why they're working, why they're looking kind of poorly. So people do kind of pay attention to these things. I think it's because he realizes that having this surrounding us is a part of the culture. Like that. So I think I've probably covered some of these things already. So, you know, surrounding people. And actually, it's not just having these dashboards on walls and on screens. That's people, regular presentations of results, etc. It's kind of key. I think I talked about some of our forums we have at the FT for sharing data, sharing reports. And you always get, when you do a talk in front of a new group of people, always get some follow-up requests for pieces of analysis or access to reports. And I think the other thing that's quite important is supporting your stakeholders. So just giving someone a spreadsheet or setting up a report and a dashboard that goes to weekly isn't normally enough. You do normally need to do some training and some kind of coaching. You need to make sure it's usable. And you do probably need to go to a few meetings. For example, you might go to the acquisition team meeting, or the CRM team meeting, talking through your report. You might get some feedback, and that's the way you embed it into the culture. Just send the report out, and you'll generally find it's not particularly well used. And also another thing, which is sort of reporting basis, is around celebrating achievement. So if you do well, if you do some interesting stuff, get it up on the screen, show there's some really interesting analysis we've done, show the impact of analysis we've done. And that's really, I must admit, when I first came to the FT, the culture of celebrating success was a bit kind of weird to me. I was a bit kind of cynical about it, a bit kind of English about it. But actually, you know, it was actually a very good kind of thing that actually does permeate the culture. Okay, data science models. So spend a bit more time talking about these. How many people here have data scientists in their teams or in their publications.
What is the definition of data science?
What's the rest of the workshop gone then?
I'll tell you what it is. It's an analyst that's paid about €20,000 more per week. So that's a good question. So within our business, there's a couple of things I think that differentiate data scientists. So one is the kind of tooling they use. They're generally kind of working in R and Python rather than SQL. Two is they are generally, whereas the analysts are quite often looking at historical data, or perhaps real-time data, and interpreting it and saying, this is what's going on. The data scientists are probably more often looking at historical data, building models, which then either predict stuff in the future, or we can then use to kind of do stuff in the future. So a forecast model that predicts what's going on, a propensity model which says this person is likely to subscribe, show them an offer. That's the But you're right, the worlds are kind of getting blurred, and actually within the FT, so we have 3 data scientists, and the lead data scientist, one of the things he does, he runs kind of workshops to kind of train up other analysts on R, get them kind of used to stuff because they know full well that from a career perspective, that's kind of a way to go. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to give just 4 examples of data science, and what I particularly want to focus on the work we did itself, though that's interesting, that kind of how we then got that piece of work and put it into workflow and kind of got it into production. First one is the one that I always talk about first, because it's the one I like most. It's about advertising. So advertising came to us, and they said, we get a lot of requests from airlines, luxury goods providers, hotels, those kind of people. They would really like to have like a frequent traveler or a business traveler segment that we can target in advertising. We didn't have any data about this, so what we did is we went to the data, because we have really good login data, so people log in from multiple devices and we can link that to one person, we were able to see all the people who are readers who access from different countries based on their IP address. And what we did some clustering here, and then we got a number of, I think there's about 300,000 or 400,000 people who we saw were kind of regular business travelers, and we could define them as such. So this person here, for example, we know that they are based in Finland, and we can see that actually, over a 12-month period, they go to Sweden, the next they go to Germany, occasional trips to Germany, etc. So it was a really nice way of us defining this group. In fact, the way we did it was even better. So actually, you can see, target this person as a generic business traveller. If you really wanted, if you were Emirates Airlines and you were opening a new route from Helsinki to United Emirates, it's an absolute kind of key person who you want to target, so we can give you some quite specific people targeting. So that gave us a nice group of people, which the ads team could then go and sell. And the way we did that is, so first of all, we kind of tested it with the ads team. So we would manually create these files, pass them to the ads team, they would upload them into Crux, which is the tool we use to do targeted advertising. And we saw what the match rate was, and we got a couple of test clients, one big airline who used this and got good results. And then what happened with the productionization bit was to make sure that script now runs every month, I think it is, because the numbers don't change a massive amount. And we automatically pass that data to the advertising team in Crux, and then so they have this regularly refreshed, updated audience, which they can then go and sell to their customers. There's a very clear, nice commercial benefit to this kind of stuff. Second example is a model we built to predict people's engagement, and specifically to predict whether people are going to decline in their engagement. This was a regression model where we looked at people where their engagement levels dipped over time, so that there might be a score of 100, and then we saw that it was dropping to 90, 80, 70, etc. Looked at the key indicators that helped define when that was happening, and built a model that scores all of our users every week and flags them if we think they're at risk of declining in engagement. But these are exactly the kind of people, thinking back to Darren's example around linking engagement to cancellation, we want to kind of, the way I talk about it, we want to kind of catch these people as they're on the way down, bring them back up to engagement. And that's really important. So that's the model we built, and the productionization part of that is to pass that into FastAct, so that Rachel's team then build campaigns to target these people, emails around content. This is an example of the email we send out to a user who's threatening to become unengaged to stop them dropping down below that threshold. Third example, this is another one that we're very keen of and has actually had a really big impact actually on the FT's strategy as a whole. So we historically didn't collect gender. Well, historically we did. We stopped doing it a number of years ago for our subscribers. So we asked their name and their address, and we asked what industry they work in. We don't ask whether they're male or female. Which again came from the advertising team. They said we'd love to have a female audience that we can market to and sell luxury goods. What we did, we had a pretty simple model whereby we went back and we looked at, we had about 1 million subscribers who we'd had long enough, subscribers and registered users, where we actually did have a name, and we did have a sex, and we built a model which basically does a lookup, looks at person's name, matches it against people who have that name, and we know the sex, and basically infers the gender, we call it, or kind of estimate what the person's gender is going to be. And what this does is this then allows us with about a 95% accuracy to actually assign a gender to all of our subscribers. We don't use this data for salutations. So we wouldn't try and guess you're a man and send you an email saying, "Dear Mr." We do use it for targeting, advertising, and particularly now we use a lot for analytical work. So, we're interested in understanding what percentage of our audience is women, and it's lower than we'd like. So there's a whole strategy within the FT to try and build more female readership, and we can use this data to try and understand, are there particular types of articles, or particular devices, or particular times of day that women read the FT, and how can we therefore find a way of searching that content and attracting more female readers. So, and this really has permeated us really through the FT. And this is actually a screenshot of a little Shiny app we built. Is anyone here familiar with Shinies?
From R.
Yeah, from R, yeah. So R is a statistical package that we use to do build models. And then Shiny allows you kind of a front end on an R model, so you can kind of play with it. So this app is very nice. You just take a list of names you've got, you upload CSV, and then it gives you a kind of a map. That's what the gender is based on the country. So the gender is not always the same in different countries. So actually, for example, the name Robin, this is not Robin. The male name in the UK, but it's a female name in the US. So actually, it's not quite as simple. You actually need to know where people are. So, that's had a really big impact on our strategies. And final one is a B2B propensity model. And this is the challenge we had here was to actually say, okay, we have a lot of people who come to our site, and generally we treat all of them as B2C subscribers. We put B2C messages in, and we try and push them down that funnel that Darren talked everyone through earlier. But actually, a lot of those people are, in fact, prospective B2B customers. So what we did, we did some analysis where we took a number of kind of factors, like what IP address do they come from, what's their usage of the website, email addresses, all this kind of stuff. It allowed us to actually estimate whether we think someone's going to be a B2B subscriber prospect or a B2C subscriber prospect. We're actually now using that data to test different kind of barriers that we put in front of people. So if you think you're very likely to be a B2B subscriber, rather than show you a B2C offer, we might actually say, oh, it looks like you work for a corporate. Click here to find more information about a corporate subscription. It allows us to actually really optimize our acquisition model, so we're putting the right kind of offer in front of the right kind of people. And from that point of view, the integration there is to take that model and put it into our content management system on the website, so that we know that when people come, what cohort they fit into, therefore we can serve them barriers in real time. So hopefully, I think these, we've got quite a few examples like this, but again, just to answer the question you asked at the beginning, what's the difference between data science and analytics? A lot of it is around this, and not just doing clever stuff, paying people more money. It is actually taking these things and actually putting it into a kind of production environment and actually using it to do some kind of change and quite often it's kind of real time. A couple of other things about data science. So one thing we've found as we've gone through this process is that we need to be pretty good about productionizing stuff. So we were taking too long to to build a data science model and then get it into production on the website. So it could be a gap of anything up to kind of 3 or 4 months. Quite often by that time, the original business problem we were given to solve this data science model actually was no longer the case. And So this is just a very simplified diagram of some of the technology we use to take data out of the database, run it in a model, and put it into an API or something. Something also that Tom mentioned earlier is around the importance of when we're running these data science models, actually how do we make sure they're accurate? So this is an example of everyone's probably, we've been talking about engagement quite a lot. And the key thing with engagement for us is we know that a user who is engaged is much less likely to cancel when it comes to the point of cancellation than a user who's not engaged. That was true when we first built the engagement metric. It was true when we looked at it again in 2016. But actually, what we want to do is we want to look at that on a much more regular basis. What this chart shows here is this is a logarithmic scale, so the numbers are sort of meaningless. But basically, this is our engagement threshold, and then the red lines are the people who are unengaged. Yeah, people are unengaged and their cancellation rate. Yeah, and then the blue ones at the top are people who are engaged and their cancellation rate. So what this is showing, the model is working because the renewal rates are better for people who are above the engagement threshold. We can track this on a weekly basis, and we're tracking both the mean and the median, so it allows us to actually monitor that the model is still doing what we want it to.
How do you define the engagement threshold?
That's a very good question. So, going back a few years, but basically we did quite a lot of analysis on correlating the engagement score to the cancellation rate, and the shape of the graph kind of looks like this. So there's kind of an inflection point where there's quite a big change in your engagement threshold. And what we wanted to do, rather than set a target for a mean or a median engagement score, actually what we set was a threshold, because we know that by moving from unengaged to engaged, you have a very big improvement in your cancellation rate, whereas towards the bottom end of the spectrum, actually it's a relatively marginal kind of thing. So if you're already very engaged, you don't get much cancellation benefit from making you even more engaged. So we just set a threshold kind of at an inflection point at which there's the biggest improvement in cancellation rate.
Do you use different thresholds for different personas
Or
or segments?
No, no, we don't. What we do have is we do have engagement clusters. So we split people into 7 or 8 different engagement clusters, and we use those as a slightly more nuanced way of describing it. So you know, if you already, there is still some benefit in taking people who are very engaged and making them super engaged. So we have like FT addicts, FT fans, super fans. So we look at it from that perspective. So you can actually look at the engagement, the cancellation rates across the different clusters. So we do look at it in a slightly more subtle way than just the binary.
Yeah. Did this threshold approach changed or altered the way which groups you're actually targeting or care about more? As my intuition says, like the dotted red line would be the ones I try to push more because we have significant change there, whereas the bottom red line is not that important. Or am I making?
Yeah, I wouldn't be sure. So this is just a weekly correlation between the average engagement score people and people who don't cancel. So this is really to make sure that we, basically want the blue line to move up the red line, vice versa, and the hard and the dotted is just to mean versus mean. So it's different.
Oh, sorry.
Kind of averages, yeah. But what was the original question?
No, is pushing people that are close to the threshold makes more sense than pushing the bottom.
So to answer your question more broadly, when I talked before about the work we're doing on what we call the borderline engaged, which is people just below the engagement threshold, we specifically identified a cohort of around 120,000 people who we are focusing on to improve their engagement score, because we know we will get the biggest return on our investment in take 20,000 of those. It gives us a much bigger improvement in cancellation rate than taking people much further coming down the spectrum. So we have started to look at this kind of quite targeted specific groups. Cool.
How many dimensions or factors do we always use for making the model? Normally?
That's a good question. It varies. From think of the kind of regression models, typically you normally end up with between 5 and 10 kind of key variables that determine that have the biggest impact on the model. And one of the reasons for that is, we typically maybe look at 100 variables.
Yeah, but not all of them are important.
Not all are important, and also there's a lot of codependency. Right? So one variable might say exactly the same thing as the other variable, so you don't need to take it both. You just take one that has the strongest code.
And what software did you use?
We do all of our data science work in R. For this dashboard,
For calculating, for making models?
yeah, R, so the Cisco language R. Yeah, we don't use SAS or SPSS. Those are open source.
Data.
Okay, this is kind of saying the same thing. So this is actually where we're taking two different models. So we have, this is an old version of the model, which was predicting the lifetime value of a customer. This is a new version of the model. Lower is better, so it means there's less error rate. This example is saying, okay, we built a new model, looks like it's better than the previous model. Let's track it over time and make sure it's still giving better output. Okay, kind of final slide for me, I think, just when we wrap up. So I think one of the things, the question was asked a little bit earlier is how do you kind of free up some time for research and development or innovation? There's a few things that I think that we're thinking about. And I've covered some of these before actually answering that question. I think the first thing to point out is you kind of need to get the basics right before you can do some of the fun stuff. It doesn't mean you can't start a balance straight away, but people, if you're kind of saying about how great we are to do all this innovative stuff, and people are saying, oh wait a minute, my report didn't run yesterday, or there's no tracking on my campaign, or that this thing's broken, you're going to lose, people lose kind of faith in your ability to kind of do stuff. So you've got to get the basics right, you've got to understand the operations and make the core of what you're doing work before you can free up time for innovation. That's very important. You can create space within the team for innovation. So whether it's, I talked about kind of hack days, or whether it's particular people in the team who might work on projects for a period of time, there's definitely things you think about. It's good. That sort of stuff can quite often pay for itself in terms of team retention and the return, literally retention of members of the team. When you're doing these kind of hack days, I would suggest not being completely kind of wild and kind of out there or doing these individual things. You kind of want to focus on stuff that you can link to a business benefit or links to stuff that it's always kind of been on the backlog that you've never got around to doing. It's a good way of kind of catching up with something. I think I mentioned before, working with other parts of the business and or third parties. There's lots of kind of third parties out there that are open to kind of collaboration, whether it's kind of camps and meetups and stuff like that, or whether it's other organisations, and definitely look at externally this stuff again. It's kind of could be a low cost kind of way of doing some of this stuff. Look at what other people are doing, but don't be afraid to copy. There's lots of interesting examples of things out there. Someone might have built a really cool Slack bot that does something. Might want to try and recreate that within your organisation, for example. Experimenting with new technology and data. We just the FT was actually starting pretty much this week. We're starting to experiment with Google BigQuery, so testing these tools. We've got another dashboarding tool we're testing with, so we work quite closely with Mark's team and the data platform teams to actually experiment with some of these new data in different ways. And don't worry if you don't get it right first time. It's an experiment. You're not going to get everything right first time. You've got to accept that some things will fail, but the old adage of kind of fail quickly and kind of move on to the next thing is very important. I think the last thing, which I mentioned before, kind of need to have a bit of fun with it. So sometimes the day job of being an analyst can be a bit drudgery. So you need to, the stuff you do that's outside of the day job needs to be fun and enjoyable, and it's definitely worth making noise about it, because you'll find the business gets excited about this stuff, and your team get excited about it too. Right. Any questions before I hand over to?
I just came up to the question at the very beginning of your presentation about the recommendations.
Yeah.
Your question was how good is good enough. So when making recommendations, so you're telling things you are sure like 80% of. Should you put it in there somewhere that the recommendation is good enough, like?
Yes, so that,
of 80%.
Yeah. So I think that's what I was saying when I said you need to kind of say why you've made the recommendation. Yeah. So whether it's a putting a probability score against something, or saying, you know, well, we made this, we think this will drive 10,000 more subscriptions, assuming that conversion rate increases by 10% and the price stays the same. So as long as you're kind of clear about these assumptions, then at least people can challenge them, and you're being honest and saying, we're not infallible. You know, we're looking at the data, saying what has happened, but obviously we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But these are the assumptions we've made. And there may be, you know, 2 or 3 relatively simple assumptions that people can say, that feels right, or
Are we going to dig deeper during the next modules into the engagement scores and thresholds and that stuff?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
no questions.
That's a good segue. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Robin, for your grueling. grueling series of presentations. Grueling for you and Sam as well.
So my first, so just going to do a quick wrap up and feedback. I've seen 2 people have had to go already. We're going to keep you until about 4 o'clock, so if you can just cope for another 15 minutes, that'd be useful. Does anyone need to go in the next 15 minutes? No, great, right. Are you tired?
Yes.
Yeah. Good, okay, so we are as well. There's a lot that we've been trying to cover, and we're all still learning and adapting. You're learning about how to apply these different techniques, about what we're doing, how you're going to change how you're doing things within your companies, within your teams. We're also learning and adapting as to how to deliver this program. We need your feedback. The more feedback we get, the more we can customize. We've already made some tweaks, and we'll keep doing that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects. Tom's going to talk more about the content, and then we're just going to do some quick takeaways and learnings from the last 2 days. So, just to recap on the projects, where we were, what we've done, and where we're going. Over the last 2 modules, we've been introducing design thinking, introducing the idea of research. You've all gone out and done your interviews, you've built up those personas. You saw at the FT's office how we actually do some persona stuff. You do see, as you walk around the building, you saw those personas on the walls. What we've done today or yesterday was start clustering them together. What we didn't know was how well these things would come together. We did manage to come up with these groups and the names, so across both the FT and across Bonnier B2B, we're all basically working for these same types of core personas. So I think that's a really sort of interesting thing that brings us all together. We can actually help each other in our different businesses because we're all trying to address fairly similar people. There's growing professionals, there's senior managers, there's owners, there's self-employed people. What we've done here is about building more empathy, more insight, thinking about the journeys, thinking about the pains and gains, but we've also confused everything by shuffling people into new teams, and so I know that people are going to feel a bit confused and a bit lost. So what I'd like to ask is the team leads. Can you put your hands up so everyone knows who the team leads are? No, Marston's team leads. And last table, who is your team lead? We're going to stop until you decide it.
Cannot proceed without a team lead.
We're going to work on your data.
Peer pressure, we'll get that.
Everyone wants to go home, you're right.
I can start with.
Okay, thank you. Right, team lead, stand up. Right. You're going to be great team leads. You're the people that the FT people are going to work most closely with just to make sure you've got total clarity of what we're doing next. We're going to send out like a draft presentation to give in January, so you'll be able to see how all this divergence and convergence comes together to tell a story that we can then be sharing with Matty, with Carmo, and with all those other people who are going to be at that bigger session. You can sit down again, you can stop being embarrassed. Right, what's next on my list? What you're going to be doing over the next few weeks and those next few months is some small experiments, trying out some ideas. Okay, we've already heard, I've heard over the last 2 days of some things that teams have already done. One team or one company I know has stopped producing a daily report that they didn't think people were using because they wanted to have their staff being able to work on other projects. And they said day 1, no one complained. Day 2, no one complained. Day 3, they started to have people talking about this. And they realized actually what people wanted was a weekly report, not a daily report. So already making some small changes in how you do things frees up a little bit of time within a team. Other teams have said you start to refine your marketing messages by being more tailored to those different personas. These are easy things to try out that don't require huge technology investment. They're just about collaborating in different areas. I've heard people talking about things that they've not talked about, or I didn't think they would have talked about back in September when we started. People saying, I learned this stuff about a customer from an interview. That there's this really weird behavior, especially in these groups of, so that was the group I was with, these owners and self-employed people, who kind of subscribe to newsletters but don't read them, don't open them, don't unsubscribe to them. They waste their time many times a day going around different news sites and getting headlines. Like, understanding that insight is things that I think people didn't have before these last few months. So it's really good to hear some of the stories. And I think over the next few months with these data projects, you'll be able to turn those findings, those insights into tangible projects, tangible ways of working that bring that deeper data insight and benefits to your company. That's what I'm going to say about projects. Tom, you're going to talk about, Tom's kneeling down to give us this next.
Only because I'm going to show a slide.
Okay.
Which I should have teed up and I forgot.
In which case, shall I press on with?
Yeah. No, you do it. You
Okay.
push ahead while I load it.
So just want to reiterate, it's a tailored program. We can do almost anything. We need your feedback. You already saw the afternoon workshop changed based on some things people have said. But I've got 3 other things that people have told us anecdotally over the last 2 days. You want help in sharing what you've learned on the program with the other members of your company. We'll see what we can do about summarizing that and helping pave the way so that when you have those conversations, that's easier for you. You want to know more about how the FT does design thinking. So those sessions are being run by Daniel. What you don't see is in the background, we've been busy tweaking and changing and refining his approach to match what we're doing, but we've never sort of shown you photos, shown you progress of what the FT's done at each of those stages. So we'll start bringing that in. And we've also heard people need some help about turning this theory into sort of actions they can actually take in their companies. It's like, well, it's great hearing all these ideas, but what do I really, really do next? So over to Tom, and then we'll come back and talk about what we've learned and what the next steps are overall.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So, as I heard from people at lunchtime, and I think that's in the previous sessions, it's been a pretty intense day, a lot to take in. We've heard lots from different people. I think the focus of today has really been about understanding the needs of the business and trying to think about how we connect the work that we do as analysts to what the organisation is trying to do, to the strategy, to the decision making, whether at the kind of Uber executive level, or whether just thinking generally about stakeholders and how we use data to make changes. So we started off the day looking at how organisations make those decisions and about ultimately what we can do as analysts to think about how to bridge the gap between our bottom-up view of the world, of the detailed data, with the top-down view from management, and thinking about how to influence the strategy. Robin then took over and talked to us about putting ourselves in the shoes of our stakeholders, both through his presentation, but also through the exercise. We learned about the lazy egotists, which I'm pretty sure when Robin was talking about that, he was thinking about me. And the sketchy briefer, that's not me. And predicting the next questions that people are going to ask, and the tactics for managing the trade-offs when you've got to have some difficult decisions with your stakeholders to say, well, actually, this, do that. Robin then went on to talk about his wisdom in building analytical briefs and asking good questions. And I think actually, testament to the work that Robin's done at the FT over the last few years, he brought good rigor and process into how we manage those requests. And I think actually we've really noticed that in the velocity and the momentum that we've been able to build. So I hope that you found those tips helpful, because again, they're sort of scale invariant. I think they work in any organization. Rachel talked about how to apply the same kinds of principles to campaign management, to database marketing, how to apply the why, the when, the who, and the what to everything that we do. And we had some really good discussion, I think, about payment failure and some of its implications, which I'm sure is particularly meaningful to all of you because it's such an important part of subscription businesses. Then we had Darren, who gave us a case study of how we pivoted our business model and linked the experimentation that we were doing on the ground to our finances and to our strategic decision making to give us the confidence to make quite a bold decision, and that actually just a few small data points was really what was enough to help us bridge the gap once we did all of the modeling. And then Robin has just shared his tips on developing a sort of data-driven culture and helping embed innovation within the organization, which in my mind sort of took me back almost to the beginning of the presentation where you asked a question about, well, you know, you're talking about managing demand, what if you're still in the stage of trying to stimulate interest? And I think all of that stuff about innovation right at the end is at the heart of that. If I think back to our journey and getting people really excited, it was the innovative stuff, but also, you know, being razor sharp focused on the bottom line and what's going to drive the biggest difference. So that was today and what we've been doing in this particular module. I wanted to throw this back up just to remind us, A, where we've come from and where we're going. So we started thinking about digital disruption and the importance of customers and why we keep on banging on about customer centricity being so important. We spent time thinking about actually how to do that technically, and some of the technology that we've had to build and employ to do it. We're here today, and the remainder of the program is going to be, so next time we're bringing back the business people who joined us for the first presentation, and one of the comments that, or discussions that I had over lunch was, you know, it's great that we're talking about how do we do this stuff as analysts and how do we connect what we're doing to the strategy, but we also need the business people to have a similar message so that actually they're committed to making this kind of change as well and committed to being interested in this journey. And I think the next section is really where some of that will start to come alive. So we're going to be thinking about how do we actually link the strategy with the metrics. We're going to start to talk about North Star metrics. So we've talked a lot about engagement, but to Yura's point, we're going to go deeper on the definition of that and actually how we built it and evolved it. Crucially, we'll be hearing from business people here on the FT side about not just, you know, we built some fancy data models and they helped us as an organization, but crucially, how do we bring that to life? And how do people actually use it in their day jobs? And I think it's really important to bring those people front and center so that when your senior leaders or the other business people who reorganizations are coming, they're also seeing the same people who have adapted and changed as a result of this information. Because I think that message is potentially incredibly powerful. You know, it's not just analysts preaching to them that this is the future, but they can really see how it's kind of driven that transformation. We're then going to talk about actually building some of those KPIs. So we'll go back to this group and thinking about the analytics behind it, and we'll start to have a go at building North Star KPIs that are related to your strategies. Then we're going to focus on storytelling, which is something we've sort of alluded to in many of our discussions, around making sure that actually we communicate effectively, thinking about how we explain what we're working on, thinking about how to tell really good stories with data. I think Robin had some good ideas there, but we want to build on it. And then the final session will be really bringing together everything that we've talked about in terms of actually saying, not just we've defined the metrics and we sort of know how they fit with the strategy, but how are we actually embedding them within the organization? How do we use them to make decisions at an investment level? How do we use them to change our processes and the way that we operate? And again, this is with the broader group in order to try and bring them along for this journey and have them support the change. And of course, at the final presentation, which is in, I think, April, I'm trying to remember the timing, will also be, it will be the conclusion of the business projects. And like at this midpoint in January, we'll be coming back to present that and the things that you've worked on and developed to the broader group. So there's a lot to come. It's very exciting. I'm pretty sure that Rob, in a minute, is going to plug the survey, but if he doesn't, I'm going to plug it now, which is that we, throughout all of this, we've been collecting lots of feedback. We definitely want your feedback this time. And especially for the second half of the program, we really want to start to think about, well, who are the people that you really want to hear from at BFT that we can come and bring out? Is it journalists? Is it marketing? Is it product development? Give us a sense of that, however you feel you want to, whether it's through the survey or through talking to some of the FT people, feed it in, and we can absolutely make sure that we're getting the right people to come to the sessions. Even if they don't come to the sessions, we can still set up sort of one-on-one sessions like we did about a week ago around marketing automation. So we've got opportunities in both ways, I think, to reach the people that you want to get to understand actually how we've used this stuff to drive change.
Rob, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so final exercise, we'll try and do it, wrap this up in like 3 minutes. So first table, tell me something good and something bad about the program. What have you liked and what do you want to see less of?
I think yesterday we could have skipped lunch and spent an extra hour on our personas.
Okay.
Because we really rushed through it, and for a couple of us, it's a lot of work. So, yeah, I think it was too little time to actually really value our insights.
So like a working sandwich lunch.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And keep going. Okay. Cool.
Which is a good thing.
Good thing, yes. Good thing.
Lunch was very good.
So you want lunch, you don't want lunch.
I skip the.
Okay.
I saw that some have more insights for you.
Okay.
I was thinking that this day today those simple yet very useful insights on the everyday tasks, like making things good, work.
Okay. Next table. What do you want to see more of?
More examples like today, which had much better focus, how you work with management, so maybe some of the marketing team. Like email, I emailed you how I use social media, for example.
Yep. Yep.
Email, how I use really focus.
Okay. And just to help me understand that, are you wanting to, you can imagine there's lots of different levels that we could go at. We could go into the, okay, this is precisely the API calls, the code, the interactions, to this is kind of the business process, these are the people involved. So Darren was talking about it as kind of like a project level. Where on that spectrum do you think we ought to be pitching this?
I would probably more of the process. I mean, technical is different from probably work up in there. So.
Cool. Take it back. What made you happy? What made you frustrated?
It's maybe happy that everybody had the same problem with working with the this side on reporting, analyzing, and asking the right question. We are in the same boat there. Both happy and frustrated at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So you're frustrated, but you're reassured that everyone is frustrated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think there's a really important point there, which is, we've said from the outset of this program, really what we want to do is build this community
and you know, build a community around the analysts working within Bonnier, so that there is a legacy that lives on beyond the end of this program. So the fact that you recognise that commonality is really important, because it also means that when you come up with solutions, you can share them.
Final table. What have you learned and what do you disagree with? Like, we're just talking about the FTE stuff, but you know your company. Some of what we're talking about can't be right for you. What have you learned? What do you disagree with?
Well, we do have the very important online advertising part that you seem to be less concerned with. So that we definitely need to address in some other way. So that's very obvious.
That's interesting. Is that a commonly held view? Do you want more advertising stuff? You want us to talk more about ads?
That was not my point at all.
So no, I realise that, but but it is true.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, sure.
in the way that we think, we actually don't think about advertising that much, other than sort of mitigating risk. But we can bring out some of our ad folks if it's interesting.
If you look at the strategy, paid content is the most important. If you look on the budget, the ads is more important. It's the reality.
I would say the interesting part of advertising is just the point where we can significantly hurt it with what you're doing with the reader's revenue.
Yeah.
So it is important. That's not in the way how to develop it, but
How to protect it while growing the paid content strategy.
not to.
Oh yeah.
Not to get in trouble because of the people.
Yeah, okay.
We can
I think about
definitely.
that.
Oh, it's a real thing.
That's what we do.
It's a real thing. So, finally, thank you. It's been really good. I personally feel that each time we get together, people know each other a little bit better, the conversations are flowing a bit more effectively. So thank you everyone for participating actively. Survey. We need feedback. Only with feedback can we change. We'll do almost anything if you tell us explicitly what you want.
Wow, that's a commitment. Rob's going to do almost everything.
We've realised not everyone has properly used the FT, so we've organised like a 6-month subscription for everyone. There's a link to that now on the homepage of Blackboard and in the survey and in an email which has the link to the survey. The link, we can also talk about that technically. You've been provisioned as part of a 50-seat B2B license with a sign-up link that expires on the 31st of December. So you can actually see what that process is of starting to engage as a corporate subscriber, see how that feels. So you'll see some of the reality, hopefully, of what you actually experience.
Good onboarding.
Oh, hopefully it's
I'm
good.
not sure about that.
Expensive one.
These particular things are a bit funny, so I'm curious. I was just thinking I want to do the onboarding experience because I'm not quite sure what you'll get. Please tell us.
So well done everyone, have a safe journey, see you in video conferences very soon and see you in person in London late in January. Thank you very much everyone.
Thank you.